not magical, but there's something charmed about this evening. I said I could see it that it was more. It came, it materialized. There it was, the Holy Ghost or whatever. It was just the ideas were no longer just pure, in the ether. They would materialize and say, "This is the moment. I see it now. I feel it with my body, and this is the way to go forward with my next film."
The early ideas of, or there are some early ideas of that editing came out of spiritualism when it was first developed, i.e. that people thought that they could move time or affect events. Do you know anything about this?
Well, I do. You see, I was always interested. Well, you asked a question earlier about the occult. But just so you know, I was always a magician, or did magic tricks as a child. I would put on shows, and we have a little tent in the backyard and all that kind of stuff. And so what I'm trying to say is that I guess the word would be fascination. I'm fascinated with those kinds of things. That's not to say I believe in them. I just find them, they're engaging and humorous, and they're better than a lot of mainstream culture. Tom Swift or some bullshit TV character. That there could be something there could be something that was that had this aura. What would be the word? A mystique of not the transgressive or cult or secret. I like this very much. It pleased me. I don't know. Just because of my nervous system psychology. So I had always been interested in these kinds of issues, and ultimately this interest, fascination of mine, was actually expressed in Spectres of the Spectrum. It's in the title, Spectres of the Spectrum, by the way. And then there's a lot. That wasn't that long ago. There's a lot of stuff there about what would it be? A kind of intelligence that wasn't embodied, shall we say, right? The Fox sisters. I don't know if you ever heard about them.
No.
Well, that's another long-winded thing. You read on the Fox sisters in 2 seconds more than I can tell you, on the internet. But what I'm trying to say is that. I found out typically in my research for Spectres of the Spectrum about the Fox sisters. And since then, by the way, the Fox sisters have become pretty popular. Not that I was the big, herald of all this, but the thing is, they were two sisters in upstate New York who started, channeling and hearing voices and whatever. And this is going on for millennia, that's for sure. Millennia. But the point is about the Fox sisters is that they became super famous in the 19th century, about the same time that telegraph came in. To me, there was a coincidence between in the cultural imagination about the idea of ideas and intelligence being transferred in almost a magical way, and their divining and their channeling. See what I mean? So. Again, there have been channelers for many years, but the telegraph so radically confronted the population with a new model of communication that their particular iteration resonated much more powerfully. Well, of course, then again, there was newspapers and mass media, so they became super famous, much more famous than in let's say in the Middle Ages, where it was just word of mouth kind of thing. So that's what I liked about the Fox sisters, not because I believed that they were really channeling, but they were part of a historical moment in which there was a problem in the popular imagination dealing with the fact of the telegraph, which there was no precedent for. See, so same thing happened with the radio, by the way. So as humans had to readjust to this new paradigm, there would be some psychic slippage, shall we say, and that the psychic energies would manifest themselves in sightings. Same thing with your business with the voices, electronic voice phenomena. It's less about the fact that these things exist, which I don't believe in, by the way, but I respect your right to believe in, but actually because of the fact that there are microphones and recording devices now. And so that this level of the irrational, whatever you call it, false consciousness would, like a shadow or a halo, would attach itself to the fact of recording. But same thing with the pictures, by the way. Yeah. Very early on, I love that phenomenon. I think I might have told you my friend is making a film about that, and all that came up in my research as well about the the ghost images and things like that, which are more often than not just an artifact or an accident happens with the emulsion, big deal. Anybody who's taking their share of photographs knows. But it's more about human projection, I think. It's not about what's there; it's about the activity of the mind. And in some cases, being confronted with an inability to deal with a new technological paradigm. And this is also the theory, just so you know, for those of your listeners who have read Technosis of Eric Davis, who figures very prominently in Spectres of Spectrum. This idea, Gnostic idea that there is the material world and there's a spiritual world, and never the twain shall meet, kind of thing, and this will be our problem until we can completely get out of our bodies, and meet the real spirit. But I don't believe that personally. But I understand that it's a strand in whatever in terms of belief systems. That's for sure. Cinema, in a way, is a kind of a artificial belief system. I would say that my films are really more they're engaging. Hopefully. I mean, I hope that they are engaging in a way, and that. Like a puzzle, like I say, like a mental game, like a learning experience in which there's a sort of a challenge to the imagination. So it's not it's not necessarily always so comfortable. Entertainment might have to do with relaxation, and I'm not against that, but people are not going to really get that in the, in the 1 or 2 hours that they spend watching my movies. What they're going to get is more of a condensed set of ideas in which they engage with it, wrestle or whatever, confront, try to solve this, and that offers satisfaction. I would have to say, hopefully it does in terms of people learning something that they hadn't known before, and also putting together pieces that don't necessarily fit together. See? And that's especially true of collage, I think. So there's more of a challenge and perhaps even a provocation.
Because, for example, with Spectres of the Spectrum, I came away with there was so much information and research that I felt that I could learn more and more and more. So it was like joining like a puzzle, and I could. On one hand, I could learn about, for example, the HARP project or Tesla or something like this, and on the other hand, it also has this beautiful sort of sensitive story going all the way through it. So,
well, thanks very much. I don't know how beautiful and sensitive it is, but the story, take my word for it, is just a table on which the ideas could be placed. Otherwise, it would be just a listing of HARP here, Tesla there. See what I mean? So that was a solution to the narrative problem. You don't have to know that, but I'm sharing that with you because that's how filmmakers. That's one method in which filmmakers can couch ideas in a narrative, but of course there's other ones. Avant-garde people, you could have listing, you know what I mean? You could do things alphabetically. There's different ways to do it. I've done those things as well too. But recently I've been more drawn to this idea of a saga or an epic or a myth. That's for sure. And by the way, I just want to say right now, I do have another copy of Spectres for you still. Because then you'll find out that's the Fox Sisters. Apparently mine broke down before you got the Fox Sisters. Even though it's a very brief section.
These weird synchronicities in life. We're speaking from a former brothel in Berlin with Craig Baldwin, and my most notable comrade Renus on my left. We had to actually break into the brothel this morning, which is kind of very odd. Do you get sort of weird things following you around, Craig? We had to actually go in through the cellar of the building because the door was kicked in last night, and so unable to get in through the front door, going through the. So, do you find this happens often with you, Craig?
Yes, but I don't want to put myself in a position of complaining or whining. You know what I mean? My life is
you don't want to attract it too
more,
much.
What?
You don't want to attract this kind of thing too much, or.
Well, there's more of your magical thinking. You know what I mean? It would happen to me anyway. It doesn't have to. You know what I mean? It's a position I put myself in. Not that I blame myself either, but I mean. I find myself, for the most part, kind of living in marginal circumstances. You know what I mean? So I don't have the huge safety net, for example, that my brothers do. So yeah. There's a lot of mischief, and mayhem, and mishap in my life, but it's not so much. It's not part of a cosmic conspiracy. That's for sure. It's just it's just the complexity of a life in which one takes a lot of risk, frankly.
In the interview before, for video before, it's kind of strange difference to sound and vision. But you were saying that you were getting footage from a form of porn cinema.
Oh yes, yes, yes.
This was in New York.
It was in San Francisco.
San
It's called the
Francisco.
Art Cinema of all things, right? And well, that's an anecdotal thing, but it happens to be a true story. But like I say, it's totally naturalized to me now. It's just like typical of the kinds of solutions. Then I lived in a bar, by the way. You were in a brothel, I was in a bar. And the name of the bar was the Russians, by the way. You know what I mean? And now I'm in a former bakery. Yeah, it just happened to be called that. And we had the neon for 7 years. I lived in that place. And we had this red neon, the Russians. I mean, how good can you get, And then now I'm in a bakery now, so there you go. So what I mean is, this idea, to take it to the next level, is just more about this idea of inventing your life and being creative and understanding you're part of a living history, and you don't have the prerogative or the luxury of starting anew from scratch. We're always going to be inheriting. The past is always with us. We inherit the lived world, so to speak, and the best thing is to accommodate, is to refurbish and recontextualize and repurpose what's there, what limited resources we have, rather than to think, what would be the word, to arrogantly pretend that we have the prerogative to buy a new car or build a new house. I mean, the people still do that, but shame on them.
So you don't drive them?
I don't, no. I mean, I have a license, but I haven't driven. I mean, I was in a car last night, but I mean, it's not often that I am. My thing is really more tactical. I guess that would be a word. It's really working from where I am, solving the problem at hand. I wish I had the luxury of a strategic solution to my problems, getting my father's house, making the movie, and so on and so forth. But that's things to change, or getting into your house, right? I mean, that just had to be made up.
Yeah.
Tomorrow you probably get in another way. So that's typical. So the things change so rapidly that you have to be whatever provisional. You have to think provisionally. In my world, there's not this larger view. It's just small moves. So all I can see, it's impossible to get look over the horizon. There's too many changes, you know what I mean, and there's too much density, over here. I should take it like my not Sylvia over there, but Sylvia's roommate just took a balloon ride. And I like this idea of going up. Well, and then of course that's the thing about Berlin, by the way. The whole thing is everything seems so monumental. The streets are so broad to me, and it seems like the whole thing was designed from a balloon. But that's not the way it is in San Francisco or whatever. In the working class neighborhoods, it's like there's hardly any room to walk down the sidewalk where I live. You know what I mean? And people don't drive cars so much in my neighborhood. They do in the U.S. of course, but it's all skateboard or walk or bicycle or take a bus or what I mean. It's all these. It's more of a human scale. But when I see Berlin, I say, well, that building is. How could they have possibly built something so big, and then had this huge plaza, this traffic circle? You could hardly get across. What's the point of a traffic circle that's like half a mile big? Did it ever occur to you?
I like the idea of space when it comes to Berlin.
I'm not putting it down. I'm just saying that the scale is so big, so that it's almost like this. The big thinkers, that's for sure. I don't know if it's well designed or what, but everything seems like it was designed from a higher balloon.
Perhaps they're waiting for flying saucers or something to come down, so that's why there needs to be so much space in Berlin.
There you go.
But maybe it'll never happen. Who knows?
There you
go. Who are your early influences as far as film is concerned? Or
Boone still remains to be a superhero.
I accidentally destroyed one of his films once. I used to work in the Cinematheque in England, and I left the film running, and the film was destroyed into about 1 million pieces. So,
because it flap.
Yeah. So no piece was bigger than sort of a centimetre or less even. What would you say I should do with this footage? Because I still have it. It's in a bag.
Make it to an art piece, maybe. I don't know.
So Bunwell.
That's a good question. Yeah.